All right. It's officially 5:03 on Monday, June 3rd. Let's call the legislative committee to order. Can introduce ourselves. I am Shane Blazer, the chairman.
Steve Cole, Alderman.
Thad Kubischek, Alderperson, committee member.
Okay.
Right, we're
Tom Moreno, Alderman, District 4.
Nope.
Joseph Zerflo, Alderperson.
Herman Blevins, Chief of Police.
Adam Hagan, Community Development.
Sue Schulzer, attorney.
Tom Novak, Waterworks and Lighting Commission.
Adam Bruno, Water Mines.
Heather Colton, Observer.
Perfect, thank you. Our first item of business is consider for adoption an ordinance revision to Chapter 15 of the Plumbing Code, adding language regarding lockable bypass valves. Review?
Although I have been the messenger, I know next to nothing about this subject, so I did ask Adam from Water and Light to be
Sure.
here so that he can explain the impetus behind the request.
So right now, we have bypass valves that are not lockable. What we do is we wrap a wire around them in the lead. And what happens is we're starting to see people start to cut them or blame them that they're not reattached. So Marshfield Utility is one of them that actually has this in their ordinance, that there's a bypass valve that you can put a padlock through it. And so by doing that, you're eliminating the error where they say we forgot to reattach it. You know, if we forgot to reattach it, we're not going to cut it. So if we do find it cut, it's more of a deterrent, you know, for them to try to get away with water theft.
So is this something for new construction, or would
It'll be
valves
only
have to be?
only new construction.
Okay.
It's not going to cost the city anything. It'll be something that the plumbers are going to have to put in their bid when they put it in for the.
So,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, explain this a little bit further. I guess I don't even know what the deal is.
So on any water services greater than a 1-inch meter, there's requirement for a bypass valve. And the point of that is so if you have a failure with that meter, we have to test that meter. You can open the bypasses, keep water supplied to the building, pull the meter, test it, and put it back. And what's happening is we lock it, and they're cutting the wire to opening the bypass. And
Circumventing the meter.
Sometimes it's difficult for us to red flag that as theft because water will be going through the meter and the bypass at the same time. If they were to shut the meter valve and run it through the bypass, that would be flagged as no usage. Why do they have no usage? We'd send somebody out there and locate it, but with bypasses, it's a little more tricky. So
Is that our own code, or is that required by the PSC Commission?
the bypass,
To have that on over 1-inch meters?
yeah, that's a PSC requirement.
Okay.
And so the lockable valve is something that more municipalities are going to, and after talking to Marshfield, they had seen reduction in water theft by using the lockable padlock.
I see no problem.
Committee?
I'll make a motion to accept the language for installing lockable bypass valves.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve this item, or the adding lockable bypass valves. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Nope, motion carries. Next item is consider adoption of an ordinance revision to Chapter 6 of the Streets and Sidewalks, which addresses mobile vending regulations.
All right, this one I do know something about. I will do a little bit better job here. When we adopted the new zoning code, the old zoning code was the only spot in the city that had any regulation that allowed mobile vending utilizing public property, basically the right of way. That wasn't really appropriate within the zoning code because the zoning code applies to basically private property versus the public property. So when we adopted the new code, we took out all reference to mobile vending. So we've been operating in a bit of a vacuum where if push came to shove, our ordinances basically elsewhere say that without proper permission, there's no using the right of way for mobile vending. With recent increase in desire to see mobile vending, such as a food truck, ice cream truck, I guess are kind of the two main examples. We wanted to actually adopt some or recommend some regulations that would cover that in a way that, number one, makes sense to an applicant, so it's fairly straightforward, and number two, covers the city as far as liability and concerns. So I did meet with the city attorney, Joe Terry, Public Works Director, the city engineer, and the city clerk. to review this language. Quite honestly, it's pulled from two main sources, City of Milwaukee and the City of Wausau. Kind of took bits and pieces out of their ordinances that made sense, and so that's the draft language you see before you. Again, ultimately, it's basically making sure that we get the information up front on what they're looking to do. We get information that shows that they have proper insurance, that they're indemnifying the city from any damages that may occur as a result of them operating within the right-of-way. It would be an annual permit, so if we issue it 1 year, we have issues with that particular vendor, the following year, we would be able to obviously not renew that permit. And then also incorporate some minimum standards in there. Things like making sure that you have a garbage can so that you're not always utilizing the public waste containers, for example, so that you're responsible for your own waste. Hours of operation, making sure that if we have a special event like Lunch by the River, that someone's not pulling up a block away, not paying the fees to participate in Lunch by the River, but is still benefiting from it, so that you're protecting special events. So buffer requirements are also in here, and not utilizing city power, city water without permission. So that's all kind of worked into here. It is set up as an administrative permit, meaning that it would go through the city clerk's office and they would issue these on an annual basis. It wouldn't be something that would come before finance. It just didn't seem to be at that level of requirement. It was more like a sign permit or a building permit in our minds. So that's the recommendation from city staff. So I guess if there are any questions on the specifics, Sue and I are both here to answer questions.
Done?
I guess one of the things, how do we know, are we gonna, I think that's one of the crux of any type of permitting is how much resources are we gonna spend, either one, enforcing it, but then also, prior to that, noticing it. So is it gonna be kind of more on if people make calls to the city and say, hey, what is this guy or is this person legit or not, or how are we gonna address that?
Yeah, I guess, quite honestly, PD keeps an eye out for them because we have had issues with mobile vendings in the past. So if they notice one, they would generally check with whoever is the permitting authority. Number two, it's not unusual for a municipality to regulate these. So the majority of people who are obviously a good operator, they contact the city in some way. So they're told the regulations that way. We do know people who are doing it or have done it in the past, so we would provide the new regulations to them. But otherwise, that would be a kind of our upfront, and then we would just, so if we did get calls, and obviously we would enforce it at that time.
Good.
Anything? Anybody in the audience have anything? Nope. What are your wishes?
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to accept the ordinance revision to Chapter 6, Street Sidewalks, which addresses mobile vending regulations as presented.
I'll second.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Say nay. All right, item 4 is to consider the following resolutions of support for League of Wisconsin Municipalities priorities as they relate to upcoming legislative and budget issues with the state legislature. The first one is increased levy limit flexibility. The second one is fixing the state transportation funding shortfall and increasing local transportation aids. And the third one is shared revenue funding increase.
And I think we even got an email on these today as well from the League of Wisconsin Municipalities.
Any thoughts?
Well, Mr. Chairman, as I look over these, this council has had discussion about budget issues and with the bonding for the swimming pool, and we've had some pretty heated discussion over tax dollars and taxing the people of this city. I do have a little bit of a reservation on this, and if somebody can clarify it for me, that'd be great. Yeah, we need our roads fixed, we need a lot of stuff that's been fixed that hasn't been looked at for a couple of years, but I don't want to vote in favor of something to increase taxes on the taxpayers in this city or support something for statewide tax increase for all the tax dollars to go to Milwaukee and Madison. There's a lot more to this state than just those two municipalities, and in previous budget cycles from people I've talked to, what's been front and center has been Bucks Arena and the Zoo Interchange, and You don't hear about the rest of the state of Wisconsin, you don't hear about anything north of the southeast corner of Wisconsin, and I would just have a hard time saying that I support anything that would do to raise taxes without knowing that we're gonna have money come back here to central Wisconsin to fix our roads that need to be fixed.
Well, taking into consideration the three different ones, and I think that we can actually separate
Yeah,
these
we can,
and go on.
I'll take each
individually.
individually.
And the one that, the first one is increased levy limit flexibility. That would directly benefit our local municipality. You know, that wouldn't be monies that would be spread to other communities. And realistically, with BNC on there too, is that over the last 8 years, legislature has been cutting transportation aids as well as shared revenues that literally go right back to the local governments. So by doing that grab that the legislature has done for the last 8 years, that's where monies for the Bucks arena and everything else from Madison, Milwaukee have spent. So the way that I look at these, the way that the League of Wisconsin Municipalities has packaged them for us, is that it would actually benefit us because we're all paying these taxes into the state to begin with. It's through sales tax and it's through state income tax, but it's getting our fair share back, and that's what these bills are designed to do. So, yeah, I mean, we're already paying them. There's no question about that, but it's allowing us to be able to recoup our money, you know, rather than go to special programs in the larger municipalities. So that's where I see it, or that's what I interpret it to be.
Joe?
Yeah, I agree with Thad. I was almost kind of leaning the way Steve was at first. I attended lobby day. They talked about it a little bit, and we got to meet with our legislatures. But I just want to echo what Thad said, basically about the benefit to our community that I think supporting these will do for the smaller communities like us.
And one thing too, I guess, what we would want to do, or what would be more powerful, is if we had a unanimous consent. If it goes to the council and it's on the council floor, having that 8-0 support of each or any of these particular resolutions. So yeah, what I don't want to do is discourage your sentiment with increased taxes or increased fees for our local residents. But I think that, and I'm going to defer to the city attorney and ask what her opinion is based on what the League of Municipalities is suggesting. And the League of Wisconsin Municipalities is an organization that looks out for specifically local governments. So if it was a case where it would be hurting our local property taxpayers, and that's where we get the bulk of our funds for local government activities is through property taxes, I think that they would either be not one way or the other, they would be middle of the road, but with them making these suggestions, I don't see where it would hurt our local taxpayers. But Ms. Schill, what is your opinion?
Well, right, I guess, for instance, the first one would basically be if our, right now we can't increase our levy above what our net new construction is, and so this is just, and I think our history probably has been that we haven't, you know, we've been very minimal in our net new construction, so we have not been able to raise our levy at all, but this would basically set a minimum of, if you have a decreasing levy or a static levy or something under 2%, you could raise your levy up to 2%. So, I mean, it is basically expanding your ability to raise your levy up to 2%. If our net new construction was only 1%, we could only raise taxes 1%.
With current
this,
legislation.
right, with this, it could go up to 2%, kind of as a minimum. So, I mean, I guess I agree that it probably helps the smaller municipalities more than the large municipalities, but I mean, it's just difficult to keep trying to do the same amount of things and same level of services when you know, have no flexibility to expand the levy. But I mean, it's, you know, I think 2% is a relatively small number, and it's, but yeah, because I'm not sure if I answered your question or not, but that's, for instance, the first one. The other one, the transportation, I mean, I think that would obviously, as you said, the league is basically what we belong to is a very strong, and they lobbying organization on behalf of municipalities, and I think they do a really good job of not favoring large cities over small. I think they really, do a good job overall of representing municipalities like us. So that's just kind of my personal view on it, but.
And then the same thing on items B and C in terms of transportation aids and
Right.
shared revenue.
Right. Obviously, yeah, the last one, the funding increase, that's money coming directly to us that others might get, so that is obviously a benefit to our municipality.
Anyone else?
I don't want to, it's a case where if power by numbers, and when we send it to the council floor, if we send it to the council floor and send it, then.
Not necessarily, I just wanted some clarification on it, because I'm not gonna vote to send money out of town, but if it's money coming back to town, then that's.
And no
it.
matter what, it'll still go to council floor. It doesn't pass.
Right.
What's up?
Sorry.
Did you have something?
I just said
Oh,
right.
okay. Tom, you have anything? Okay. So what are your wishes on the first resolution to increase the levy to limit flexibility?
If I don't hear any objection,
We'll
I'll
do all
group them
three?
all three together.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve all three resolutions: increase levy limit flexibility, fixing the state transportation fund shortfall and increasing local transportation aids, and C, shared revenue funding increase, as recommended by the League of Wisconsin Municipalities.
I'll second.
You will? Okay. Have a motion and a second to approve the three resolutions. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay. All right. Item 5 is consider for adoption an anti-bullying ordinance. Yes, once, Steve?
I'll start. This was discussed back in April, prior to the council change, between Alderperson Zerflu and I were on the legislative committee at that time. And what was brought forth to us from the superintendent of public schools and the police chief was a anti-bullying ordinance that was, basically we were given a copy of what Plover's anti-bullying ordinance was. And out of that meeting, we had directed the city attorney to put that into a Wisconsin Rapids ordinance, which we have before us today, has defined in 25.37 of the bullying ordinance. I don't have a problem with it, however, I would recommend one change if that's okay to proceed, Mr. Chairman. Under 2537, para 6, it says, any person who shall violate any provision of this section shall be subject to a forfeiture of $50 plus costs for the first offense. I honestly don't think that goes far enough, and I brought something along with me today that's kind of case in point from 4 years ago. Back in November 2015, the council undertook the social hosting ordinance in chapter 23. And under chapter 23.17, para 5, for parents that decide to host a kegger and let other kids drink that aren't of their own, I have it right here in front of me. It says that the forfeiture is not less than $1,000, no more than $5,000. You want to take a look at that?
Yep.
Right with.
I remember being there.
And honestly, I know we discussed that there's officer discretion involved in this. If a letter is warranted on the first time, depending on the nature and the severity of the bullying. But the world today is a lot different than the world I grew up in 30 years ago. I mean, I got bullied on the playground and I took care of it on the playground. We don't encourage kids to do that anymore. Kids are being told that they have to turn another cheek, they have to walk away, they have to go tell an adult, which a lot of kids do. But that leaves them for more bullying. And with the way it is today, kids are accessible 24 hours a day by their cell phones through text messaging, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, any of these other various forms of communication. So, you know, you might tell your kid, just ignore it, you know, it's 9 o'clock, turn your phone off, go to bed, but kids will be kids, they don't listen to it, and they can't get to sleep at night because the person that they just walked away from at school that gave them a hard time is now texting them at 9 o'clock at night and saying, you know, you're a horrible person, you should just go kill yourself because you narked me out or something. And then pretty soon Wisconsin Rapids has that. I honestly think that if we went that far in 2317 to say it's a minimum $1,000 fine for underage drinking, I think after the parents are given a chance to correct the action, if it continues, I think we should make it a $1,000 fine to really drive home the point. And I think when this gets out in the community, that if parents know that this is a $1,000 forfeiture, I think it's going to put responsibility on the parents to be more in tune with what their kids are doing and get the problem under control sooner rather than later. That's just my opinion on it.
And I don't want to discount anything that you said. The one thing that a little bit is that maybe I'll throw out as an option, because sometimes, especially with monetary fines like this, forfeitures, they're punitary in nature, but are they corrective in nature? And could we combine it with either a monetary fine or having to complete 25 hours of community service? Because sometimes that awareness, sometimes that connection with community, realizing that you know, there is a volunteer network out that helps with people in all different lifestyles and challenges and everything, and who knows, maybe it was a one-time deal. Someone could learn from it, and instead of initially paying a forfeiture, is exposed to the right people, the right leadership, the right people in the community through that community service type of an aspect, and then that is more corrective rather than punitive on that. I mean, is that a pie?
And I myself like a steeper forfeiture, not to 1,000 though, I'm not in favor of that, just because you're, not that bullying is an issue or a serious issue, but comparing bullying to hosting underage party, I think there's a balance there of you know, considering that. And I also like the idea of maybe some community service. But I know with the $50 forfeiture, the costs addition are,
Is that 313?
yeah, it's like 313 when it's all said and done, so it's more than $50. And that citation, the deposit amount is $50, but when you add all the costs to it, it's $313 for the first offense. But I would, and the ordinance talks about, you know, this is for the first offense, but we haven't addressed any subsequent offenses. So like Sue would maybe creating a graduated scale, like 50, 75, 100. Or is it just?
Because, I mean, generally,
I would be
sometimes
very supportive of that.
they'll do a bond schedule of,
Right.
you know, because a lot of our forfeitures do not, you know, specifically for each type of ordinance violation, does not say first, second, third, and
Yeah, that-
a bond schedule's been developed that might
50
apply
total.
for, graduated
Mhm.
for certain violations.
That'd be the one change I'd like to see is a, you know, a graduated offense. I see some parents here. Any thoughts, Jane?
Well, I mean, my child was bullied all year, and it was a big problem. We went to the school board, I went to the superintendent. I've gotten nowhere, and it's happened all year. My child now is ill. She has a serious illness because of it. And I don't know which way to turn anymore. My hands are tied. I just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
My child's been told snitches should die. I've gone to the teachers, I've gone to the principal, I've gone to the superintendent. I've done everything I should do. Doesn't even, they just keep saying, go and tell somebody, go tell us when something happens. She's done it over and over again and nothing happens. Parents, we've talked to parents, they said, oh, we didn't know what was going on anymore. The school contacted us at the beginning of the school year and that was it. We didn't know anything was happening anymore. You know, I don't know what to do anymore. I would love to see a fine. I would love to see kids do community service. I would love for parents and the schools to work together. I even suggested that these kids work on anti-bullying, projects together. So they work together. They know what they're doing. You know, the bullied kid and the bullier. I've suggested so much and nothing gets done. You know, now I feel like I'm flagged in the school. You know, I don't even feel comfortable going in my daughter's school. And it's just been an awful school year. And
This is fifth graders we're talking about, fifth grade.
Yeah. And
11-year-olds.
I know you personally, you know my daughter, and it's it's a hard situation. I just don't know what
It's
to
to
do
the point
anymore.
where, literally, I mean, our daughters are best friends, so they're singled out. And it's to the point where I've taken her to the doctor so many times that she's physically ill at school, throwing up. She latches onto me like a little 2-year-old when you have to drop her off for the first day of school. Or 4-year-old, she's attached to me, bawling, screaming, doesn't want me to leave her at school. That's how far it's gone. So I'm all for a fine and I think community service for the child, and I think a fine for the parents.
And it's not just our 2 children, it's a bunch of them. There's a little group of kids, you know, they call themselves, they have a name for themselves, and they walk on the playground, gather, and they circle the kids, and they call them names, and it's continuous, you know, and it's eased up a little bit, you know, throughout the year, but they're still doing things. They still are. I mean, my daughter was on crutches, she got tripped, you know, and nothing was done. Nothing. Oh, you know, it's just 5th grade kids. No, it's not. No, something should be done.
I know there was not that long ago an incident with Rams that went around Facebook, a note, and I know we got an email from the school superintendent who's in favor of this ordinance also, and the police chief is, and I'd like to make a motion that we approve this ordinance. I would like to create a graduated offense though, where, second, third, fourth offense is a steeper penalty. And then also I do like the idea that, these kids do need to be held accountable, and we need to have a community service component put into the punitive part of this ordinance.
Mr. Chairman, I do want to give you a second for your motion, but before I do that, I know when I took in, worked on the paraphernalia ordinance, we talked about $250 for the first offense, $750 for the second offense, and then it was $1,500 for the third and subsequent offense within a rolling 12-month period. Do you think maybe that's an option to explore at this time?
I'd be in favor of a little more. However, I'm looking at the paraphernalia ordinance maybe might be dealing with older, where like these ladies are dealing with, we're in 5th grade here, so I don't know if
So just for some amounts, but so there's amounts associated with it, like first, second, third, and then subsequent.
See, I was thinking myself personally 50, because that's 313, and then 100, 150, something like that. Because then I know, because I think you get it too steep, then people just won't be enforced. That's my only concern, because there's not mandatory enforcement. There's discretion there, and the parents are concerned with that too. And that's my only concern, is making it too steep that it just becomes unrealistic, in my opinion. Law enforcement good?
I know you're waiting for a second, but just something.
Oh, he seconded it.
Oh, he did? Oh,
Yeah.
just something to consider. at the discretion of course, the officer investigating the incident, they can be cited for each occurrence.
Right.
So, I think the goal is to correct the behavior, so.
And just to add to that, speaking with Plover, because they've had this ordinance for a while, we asked about the effectiveness of their ordinance, and they have said that sending the letter home to the parents has been very effective. That in a lot of instances, there isn't a second occurrence because the parents are now made aware of this behavior, and they're also made aware of the fact that if there is a second offense, that, you know, it's going to be a ticket, and it's going to be some monetary fines. So that's getting the parents involved. So Plover has said that the parental notification has been the most effective part of their ordinance.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. What's your thoughts? I know what your thoughts are, but,
Did you have anything in your motion on the community service aspect of it then? too?
yes, I did.
Yeah, that would not.
I was gonna ask you about
Since, in municipal court, it's simply forfeitures. that
Oh,
are
that's right,
given.
'cause it's-
You can, the only time that if you have a fine, it's possible that they might have the opportunity to work out some fine in certain ways, but we can't order community service, it's just simply forfeitures.
Okay.
Now, the school district should have a policy, and the policy should be, you know, kind of mirror this, the parents are notified. There are certain steps, they kind of have some more flexibility in terms of what can be done with the juvenile, and in terms of, and I don't know to what extent that's being done, you know, the follow-up with that, it seems like you're not big fans of that, I'm not gonna talk to that, but it's, I mean, they have to, by law, have to have a policy, and I
Yeah.
hope that you've seen a copy of it, and every parent, I thought, is supposed to get a copy of it, or it's on their website. You
Okay.
can go to the website. But when they have instances, then the parent is supposed to be notified. And I guess I'm saying the parent of the bullier,
The bully.
probably. I'm not sure. I thought I brought a copy of their policy, but I'll look at their policy.
And see, when we bring the issues forth, we are told, well, we can't tell you if it's been addressed. And then when I come in contact with the mother of the bullier, and she says, I haven't heard anything since the beginning of the year, to my knowledge, this had ended. And the thing is this was just in April, and this has been going on since September. So, like, we're going to the principal, but the principal is not following through on her end. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at with, that's why I guess we would like to see this ordinance go through, because we'll hold them accountable then.
Exactly, and there is a law enforcement aspect to it.
Yeah.
Mr. Cole?
I had a question for police chief, since he's our member of law enforcement here. Don't mean to pick on you, chief, but
That's fine. That's
What-
why I'm
what-
here.
And Joe. Yeah, Joe.
and Joe. But one thing you hear a lot of parents say today is, I can't control my child and there's nothing I can do. I can't spank my child anymore, there's no form of punishment that's effective for my child. So if we put through this anti-bullying ordinance and we're gonna send home a letter to the parent on the first offense, saying your child's engaged in bullying, as a law enforcement officer, what is your recommendation that parents can do to correct their child's behavior?
Oh, that's a tall question you're asking. I mean, I've raised kids myself. I mean, all kids are different. I don't have a generic answer for problem children at home. I mean, parents need to be engaged with their kids. I do what I did when my boys were young. You gave them time and attention. You didn't let the screen babysit them, and you didn't, as long as you're involved in your child's life, they teach them values and things of that nature, rather than just, you know, like I said, letting a phone or a laptop babysit them. Be involved in your child's life. Talk to them.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have any comments?
You know, like I say, I don't think there's a lonely place, being bullied and going through parents saying, it'll be all right, and it's not all right. And with these two moms having to come here, I think this is important.
You know, and it's not necessarily the parent of these children, because the principal has talked to us about this. I mean, the parents seem to be in jail. And so the grandparents are raising these kids. in a lot of instances with these kids. She's,
Couple.
you know, and so, you know, it's kind of, yeah, they come from a bad home, you know, a bad home life where, you know, there's been issues. So, yeah, you know, they've had a tough life, so there's got to be something can be done to help these kids before they do fall through the crack any further. What it is, whether the school tightens it up or law enforcement tightens it up, I don't know, but these kids are going to fall through the crack and they're going to end up down the road in jail, and God help them. So something needs to be done. If it's a fine or if it's community service or what it is, I just hate to see more kids go down the wrong path. And in why they do, they're destroying more lives.
Thanks, Shane. Where does this all, and I'm not disagreeing with what's been said about bullying, but where does this start? Say it's at school, the bullying. Does it go through the process at school before it comes to the PD with this ordinance? I mean, is the school being then bypassed first to the PD?
The
Or
purpose
how
of
does
this
work?
ordinance, I was approached by the school superintendent on this, and we worked together as we should. The police department and the school district work together. The purpose of this ordinance is, one, 99% of the time where this is going to originate is with the school resource officers. They'll be involved with the schools, and this also lets us address the bullying incidents that are happening outside of school, where now bullying, because of technology, is a 24-hour-a-day thing now. Not only is it happening in school, but now it's happening outside of school using social media. That gives us a chance to address the outside behaviors that may not necessarily be on school grounds. But we're going to be doing this as a partnership with the school district. We work hand in hand with them. And we also want the parents to be involved as well, whether it be the parents of the victims or the parents of the instigators. We want to at least open a dialogue and get the ball moving. But this gives the school resource officers another tool in their toolbox to deal with this, rather than just with the school rules, that we can also use a city ordinance to move this along.
Right, and I'm glad you said that, because it's more than just happening at the school.
Correct.
It seems to be how this discussion is going around and around.
And to be honest, it's not just kids. I
And,
mean, this ordinance could
again, with
easily be-
social media is one of the biggest problems I think that we have going on.
I agree with you.
With almost everything.
I agree with you.
Because people can be on that, they don't have to say who they are. They
Exactly.
make all the comments they want to about whatever. Nobody knows who's who. They don't know what's true or not true going on, but it does incite people to read it. But, you know, it shouldn't be taking place. You know, and like I said, and I'm glad you said, you know, not just the school, because that's all I was hearing here was the school, and it is outside of that. And, actually, that may be a bigger concern, a harder one to actually take care of, maybe.
And again, this ordinance would give our officers a tool outside of the school hours to deal with some of these things.
Anyone else have anything they'd like to add?
I guess, real quick, I'm in absolute support of this, however we figure it out. I would be in support also of creating that graduated scale tonight, so that we can bring it to the council floor. But I don't want this to be the end all. I want to be able to have our PD to have the tools to help this, but I want to take it to the next level, you know, and provide some type of a mentoring program that we can with, because if it is a case where kids don't have strong leaders at home, and they have other guardians that aren't their parents, and they're exposed to this kind of stuff, we need to get them out of that environment. How do we do that? I don't know, you know? But hopefully this will be the first step, and then, but like I said, what I don't want to have this is be the end, because just by making something illegal doesn't mean that it disappears. So.
Good?
I do have
Yes, go
something to
ahead,
add,
Heather.
and that is, I want to start off and say that, yes, I agree with this ordinance. I think it should be. My kids were bullied, I was bullied, you know, it's pretty hits to home. But I guess one thing that I see with this is the first step, it should be taken care of at school. And in my experience from myself, with my kids, from what these ladies have said, the schools aren't really doing their job. So don't you think that this is going to be, with it going through the legal system and there being fines and whatnot, don't you think that's gonna put an even more stress on the police department to have to enforce something that should actually start with the schools? And what can be done in order to get the schools to actually do their job and protect our kids that we're entrusting them with?
Well, to answer your question, one, first of all, this is about the kids and doing what we can to help the victims. Again, I used the word partnership before, and I mean it. We should have a partnership with the school district to work together through this. This type of thing shouldn't be 100% the police or 100% the school. It should be a mix. And in the extreme cases, is this where this comes in. Like I said, I have a good dialogue with the school superintendent. We speak about these things, and we'll continue to work on it. And as far as what the school is doing and what the police department is doing, my intention is not for the police department to take over this type of situation from the school district, because that's not our intention. Again, it's just to have another tool, but not to take over and be 100% a court problem now. The school needs to do it up to a certain point, and then we help out. So that's what we'll be doing.
I get that. It's just coming from a recent experience and from a local parochial school that, we took it to the principal and they didn't really think anything of it. And so consequently, we took it further and called the police then. So again, it comes back to my point was, how do we hold the school accountable for this, and instead of just dumping everything on the police?
Well, I'm sure that, some of the things that you've spoken of tonight here in this meeting could also be talked to at the school board. And bring it to their attention, and, open the dialogue there.
That's true, that's a good idea.
All right, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. And are you good with the motion, Sue?
To adopt it as presented, and then I'm not sure about the graduated
Well,
scale. Do we have a graduated?
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement on the graduated scale. And for myself, I would like to see consistent with the rest of the ordinance. I think Alderman Colt would like to see maybe different fines, but we can discuss that at council if we want.
Okay.
But I think maybe, at least for myself, maybe we can start with what's consistent with other graduated scales in the ordinance,
Okay,
if that works.
sure.
And for clarification, we could change that if this is adopted. We can change the graduated scale at
Right,
any.
the deposit amounts, yeah.
Right.
We can adjust those deposits. Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and we're all clear on that, to adopt the ordinance. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Nope, so motion carries, and that will go to council for final adoption, or discussion adoption. All right, next item on the agenda. Is going to be consider an adoption for ordinance resolution or revision to Chapter 2 of the City Administration Code, which would have an alderman be one of the regular voting members on the Water and Light Commission. So I guess I'll start with this one. I did speak with somebody from Water and Light today, and I just wanted to make it clear that I brought this about, and the only reason why I brought it about was historically, every year at our council reorganization meeting, we try to find 2 volunteers to become members of the Water and Lake Commission, and we have no luck. Non-voting members.
Aldermen to come on to be part of the commission.
Non-voting members. So that by the ordinance, there is 2 spots for aldermen to sit on the commission as non-voting members. This year, I believe Tom is one. We do not have a second. So the reason why I brought it about was not because there's issues there or any problems with the current commission. I guess I'm tired of every year watching that this song and dance takes place trying to fill this position. I know currently on the wastewater treatment commission we do have the director or the Public Works Committee member or chairman sits on that. So that's when I thought, well, maybe we could have a member sit on there as a voting member, because if I'm a voting member, I'm going to have more interest in it, to be honest, versus a non-voting member. Even though that non-voting member can participate fully within commission closed sessions because they are a member. I just thought it'd be time that we need to really look at these two members and what their role is. If we want to keep two, if we want to get rid of one, if we want to change it, if we want to add one to the commission, or wait for an opening to occur on the commission and then make that a voting council member on the commission. Just my thoughts. Sure everybody else has thoughts in this room. I guess as a member of the commission.
Okay, I'd be
curious to know your
Tom,
thoughts.
I was with Tom on the wastewater,
Yep.
and Tom showed up quite regularly, just as,
Yep.
I think Bob Nash and, I can't think of the other, I always thought we had pretty good participation. And as far as water and light, I know Scott Keller came often, and Scott Keller came to our additional meetings like finance or whatever, personnel. And, and Tom shows up from time to time in those meetings. So, I know our time frame at 1 o'clock might be difficult for some people to show up. And it's basically a management meeting. All the people are reporting, what is going on. You guys probably see the agenda.
Get those, yep.
And, I don't know, we vote maybe, out of the 12 meetings, we probably have votable items on 9 of them. And of course, the big thing is the budget and the expenditures in the beginning of the year when they're buying equipment.
We look forward to it.
And as far as, I wouldn't, what I know of other, and you probably heard from Jim, that a lot of the other municipal utilities do have either the mayor or an older person on the meeting, or on the committee, or the commission, I should say. And I wouldn't have a problem with it.
How about, I guess, as our council person on there, what are your thoughts? I think myself attending meetings, you're more apt to feel like you need to attend a meeting if you're an active participant voting member.
A stakeholder.
A stakeholder in it. And that's kind of what led me to down this path, that obviously the two non-voting members, I think, is maybe when we had 19 alderpersons was a little more feasible. But I think we've gotten to the point where we have trouble getting two. I'm kind of curious to know if you have any thoughts, Tom. Or is it-
I think, there might be interest of others on the council to be on that if they, and to attend if they were an active voting member of the commission. And that's probably is a reason why some people aren't interested in being on it. It would for the council, it would probably be better if there was a voting member that was, on the commission. And Scott may still be on it, I'm not sure. I thought he might be, because
I thought Scott was on it.
he went to,
Well, it doesn't,
unless
you're non-voting, so you're not really a member of the commission, and you're an observer.
right, I thought his name was in
That's right.
there.
Anybody can observe though.
Oh, that's right, you
Yeah.
are an observer,
Yeah.
you're not.
Yeah.
I get, what do you call it, assigned to the commission, and it's whether you
Well,
want to
right
come
now
or
it's,
not.
You're just,
it's really, it's just, let's send some people over there to maybe to
Right.
watch, but you're not involved in,
you're not an active participant really as much.
right. So I don't, as of the last meeting, was it just Tom?
I think Tom was the only one, I don't think
Was it?
Scott was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Scott,
He might attend on his own, but
one thing with
officially.
Scott, he wrote for us our scholarship policy. And it was quite elaborate, so they couldn't use favoritism. The kind of the best student came to the top. And
Scott brings that being a previous
of course, you'd be the
administrator, which-
perfect one to do that.
Correct.
And, you know, he has interest in, you know, in our, like our side meetings that we have to do.
He went on a regular basis.
Yeah, he was pretty much on a regular basis.
Unless he was gone or something like that. that he couldn't.
And often we have both of them there. You know, and I'm not trying to say you shouldn't have an older person on the commission.
And I always, I always ask, because I do hear, you know, I worked there for a while too, and, you know, it's always like, oh, why does the city council want to be involved in over here? And, you know, there's been times in the history of Water and Light that there was employees beg council would be involved, and then there's other times where things are a little smoother that we don't want council involved. And I don't know, I still look at it as a city-owned asset.
Yep.
And it's very important to every taxpayer, ratepayer, but more importantly to the ownership of the taxpayers, that asset is maintained, and ultimately I think, and Sue, correct me if I'm wrong, we're still ultimately responsible.
Yeah, it's still under your general direction. and
Right,
control.
so,
I think you've been pretty hands-off
mhm.
for the most part, and, but there are occasionally things that come up regarding
Which ultimately,
employees and benefits and things like that, which really are under your control, but you haven't gotten
exercise.
involved in that.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, how I had put together the ordinance and not knowing what you wanted, I guess just to, so it could really be written in any way. But as it was brought up, and this was probably, I don't know how many years ago when it was, well, let's put, one of the members should be an alderperson, so that's how that's written, that there would still be 5, it's always good to have a number.
Absolutely.
And then that first alderperson would just be chosen by the council, you know, maybe at the expiration of the next
Mhm.
person or however, or you could
Convert the
add
observer
2 and make it
to,
7 or however, but that's just, at least you can see how what the ordinance says right now when you look at the proposed ordinance there. How it's written. Should be right after the voting stuff.
Is that the 2.09?
Yep. Yeah.
you have that was not in there. Oh, there it is, sorry.
Right after the
Yeah.
bullying.
Yep. I do respect and appreciate the members on that committee that with, obviously I might have a little internal experience, but I think the global position of the commissioner and the knowledge that the commission brings to the operation of a utility as a whole is a unique set of skills. You know, it's just not something that you want to pick a couple people and throw them on there because of the responsibility as I said, as the ownership of this asset and the benefits by us having ownership of that asset and the rates we pay is a benefit by ownership. And where there's a lot of benefits, our ratepayers see that if they were for a profit company there, it'd be a different situation, a very different situation. But I myself, I'm in favor of a sitting council person on that commission, still with 5. I think I think over time we've learned that you grow something too big, it just doesn't make sense. You know, I wouldn't want to see it go to 7 or another number.
You know,
It's too big then.
we have changed, you know, we used to have a grounds committee and a finance committee. We kind of incorporated them all.
Yeah, streamline it.
And because most of us we're at all the meetings, we don't hold it. And the only thing that could cross my mind, having an older person make it political, but it can't be political because there's one vote.
Right.
And I think we're about the most non-political bunch of people
Mhm.
that you can find, because we, as you say, we work for you, and we are an asset, and, you know, through the pilot program, we give whatever amount of money, and we're for the ratepayer to make sure that our utility is dependable.
Mhm.
We try to make sure that the guys are doing their job as far as we're not having a lot of outages.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, and as I said before, those members, I think, bring that unique set of skills, the business skills, and some of those things from the background. But I like the connection of having an alderman there, because ultimately, the aldermen or the council is responsible for what goes on over there, so that we would have that connection with the commission, such as we do as at the wastewater commission. But that's the only reason. It really spun from the April meeting where we sit around, we're drawing straws and flipping coins who's going to be one of the members. And I'm going to reel that in and say that my other concern is that next year, or let's say when Tom's term ends, or because we would have to do it on a 2-year versus a 4-year, or a 5-year, because if that person isn't reelected, we'd have to deal with that.
Right, I would say, yeah, you just do it at the reorg every, I guess if it just happened to be the year that it's even numbered, then they might be 2, yeah. I mean,
Right.
that's how a couple of the other committees are, so.
Or annually, that's how planning commission
Right.
is.
Sure. Yeah, I could change it for his or her term out, since it's just an annual selection by the common council.
I think our terms are starting in October
Right.
They do,
on a yearly basis,
No.
and these are elected in September.
right.
I know one of the questions I was asked about the term limits. Originally, that came about several years ago, that we instituted. The commission approached us and wanted term limits, and so then ultimately the council did term limits, and so that's where I think they're at two terms of, which is 10 years, which is a long time. And I myself in favor of term limits in government, and change is good. Change is good. And so right now, I'm not interested in dealing with term limits. But my concern is that next year, that we have, and every year after that, we have a council person that wants to be on that commission, because at least on the Water and Lake Commission, or you apply for that, you submit, and we usually get a number of names that have people interested. I just don't want us to see come April, all of a sudden, Tom's not available or chooses not to run, not around. Are we going to have another person wanting to take that role? Because now we have to have somebody there as a voting member.
Well, and
That's my concern with that.
to take that to the next level, as the common council, we're the governing body, and the commissioners' appointments are coming from the mayor, the city mayor at the time.
Nope.
And
Commission appointments are actually done by council. They submit a letter of,
we affirm them.
no, not that one.
No, those are,
That one's a total
Yeah.
council.
Is it? Okay.
You're in
Okay.
charge completely.
Well, then.
Yeah, that one, they actually submit, and then we make,
Oh, that's
you
right,
appoint
that's right.
somebody, like, you make a motion to, or I can't remember how we do that.
Wastewater does exactly what you're saying, the mayor
Appoints
appoints.
those,
Yeah.
but yeah, the council does water and light, where
That's right,
um,
and
they submit letters and they come and talk, and then we
I
we
remember-
vote on that.
Yeah, there was one that I was a part of, I remember that now. And it's a public vote, it isn't a
Secure ballot.
secure ballot.
Right.
For Mr. Rayom, would it encourage you, rather than being an observer, if you were a voting member, would it, if you were on the fence one day and it was a nice day, and you wanted to take the golf clubs out, 12:30-ish, you just get done with a sandwich, would that encourage your participation with the commission if you were a voting member?
I try to get to as many as I can, I think, anyway, so that if it encouraged me more, I guess probably because I'd have the vote.
Right.
But, not a whole lot more, because I do go and listen to what they're talking about, basically, and interesting. I think I've learned over the years, that the couple years that I've gone to, just sitting there and listening, but haven't been able to vote. So, what I was trying to think of before you asked that, if by chance that whoever would be on there, that it may fall under some committee, who's a member of a committee such as, and I don't know if it would be, I'll just throw out like Public Works. That Public Works may be the one that would have the representative on it. More so than I think like Finance. I'm not saying it would be Public Works, but maybe that, that you take, that way you would would have to ask out of 8 people, which one you want to be on it, that, you know, out of the ones that were on a certain committee, that one of them would be the member to go to attend.
Well, yeah, I
If that's the
think-
road it went.
One of the big things is, I would think of finance, you know, reading the profit and loss statement, and going through the,
'Cause I think ultimately, we technically, the budget is our budget to approve, or,
Yeah.
and then you can modify it after that, or.
but we go through the profit and loss statement for every month.
Oh,
And, you know, we try to spend some time tearing it apart and asking a lot of questions. So.
Mhm.
But of course, Public Works is very important too.
No, and I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I got, you know, Public Works first came to mind, finance though, because
Mhm.
what you just said, Tom, so that's.
Joe, you got
And
anything?
that may not have to be, you know, if we do partake, that doesn't mean it has to be something from
Right.
a certain committee. It could be that, you know, who wants to, of the city hall persons who
I
want
only
to.
do it because I'm interested.
Right.
You know, that's, I think it's extremely interesting, especially what Adam does.
Well, then with your wastewater background too,
Yeah, that was
They're
interesting
good.
too.
but it's a good, they're so related.
Who'd ever think it's exciting and sewage?
People out there, I guess.
Yeah, right.
Joe?
I guess, 2 members, you know, on there, you know, we never really have a time where they report to the council, so to speak.
No.
So, I mean, I understand the idea of it, but without a vote, you're not really overseeing anything. I mean, you don't have a say.
Mhm.
Budget time we do, that's.
Budget, yeah.
But,
And not that
I-
there's,
what should we do? I don't
yeah,
know.
I just, it's, and like I said, the only thing that came about is because of April, but obviously I have never, it's a whole different utility. And
Is that when councilmen are voted in April?
correct,
Okay.
correct. And then we reorganize and then we appoint to different committees and things like that. So that's why it came about in April this year that, as we do every April, kind of look around the room and draw straws and
But like he kind of alluded to, is that one member voting, is that really council oversight anyway? You know,
I don't think we want, I think, I don't think we want to run the data. I don't think council should be involved in that, but at all. And I think that's bad. I like bringing in business people and things like that because it is a business, you know, it's a business and they need to operate that way. And I think getting government too involved in that concerns me for the health of the utility and everything like that. But having that connection or that voting connection there, that where a council person's involved and not oversight, but there is input and and that connection to report back should there be an issue, or if the council feels that we need to do something or think that something should be done differently or looked at, then we have a representative there that might, we can always change the ordinance anytime we want, but that's not good either. But having that council person sitting there, you know, and expressing maybe the council's wishes a little bit verbally there.
I'd make a motion if you're ready.
Yeah, well, tell them what's going on here.
I would like to accept the language change as presented in 2.09 par 22, with the addition of the 5th commissioner being an alderperson shall have 1 vote. That commission
Should be a voting member of that commission.
should be
On a one-year rotating basis and one-year term.
on a 1-year term instead of, because they have it for
His
terms.
or her term of office.
Yeah, that, up to you, because
I was just gonna-
I'm still on the council, but I kind of gave up my seat on the plan commission type of thing. So it is possible, you know, that you can still be on the council and not on it. So if someone took a new job and they can't make it at 1 PM or something, you know.
All right, I'll walk back, rescind my motion, and I'll amend, or I'll put a new motion to accept the wording changes in 2.09 par 22, that the 5th commissioner shall be an alderperson who was selected by the common council at the organizational meeting for a term of 1 year, and adding the language that they will be a voting member on the commission.
I second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Right, it says there's 5 commissioners, so they would have,
They would be.
yeah, they
right.
would be a voting member, I mean, that,
My only question is that obviously we have commissioners that are on a cycle of their term. And I think we need to wait until the expiration of the
Right.
next term.
mhm. So that would be October 1.
Yeah, so is it somebody every year, is it?
Yeah, I think every year.
Yeah,
I
ideally,
just wanna-
Falls
sometimes
off.
it gets,
I don't think somebody
Yeah.
should be like removed to replace an alderman.
right, so beginning October 1, then you would, to fill the, then that
Remainder.
person would be off, and then that would be till April, and then you,
Do it again.
right.
Do we have to put that in the ordinance, that it's an uneven
I can-
or
Do I have to put what in the ordinance?
like, the first term will be from October 1st until the
Yeah,
organizational
I could probably
meeting?
just put that in the preamble of the beginning October 1, whatever, and then,
Yeah.
or, yeah, I'll put that in there.
Joe?
Math is hard for me, but, so like, every year a new older person potentially, or maybe the same one,
Correct.
but then, is there gonna be a situation where this next commission member who expires, he's just gonna be off?
Correct.
Right.
Okay. And then we're not gonna have, that's not gonna happen every year though necessarily, so business will continue as usual then after this year.
4 will be appointed by council on their expiration, and then the council would be a reorganization would be.
So I guess the point of all that was then, do we need to change the length of their terms? Do you think or no?
Well, you wouldn't have to. I
It could be
mean,
a
that would be a
5-year.
separate thing
Okay.
if you think their terms are too
I think
long.
5 years
Yeah,
is good, because it's a lot to
yeah,
learn.
It's, I don't think we'd cross over on anything. The rest of the schedule would just start going as.
You
as
just-
is.
There'd be just 1 year where there would be a new
Yeah,
non-council person put on, it would be, right. I like 5 years though, because realistically, if, I highly recommend all of you even just go over there and check out the water end of it and everything at 16th Street there, because it's amazing, and it's a lot to going on, and I think 5 years is
Can
probably
I-
not even enough time to
can I,
learn.
can I tell you?
It's probably not even enough time.
Acronyms. These people are acronym crazy. I don't know what they're talking about half the time. You know, they like, you have your own lingo. They have an acronym for going to the bathroom, I think.
So anybody else have anything else?
And no, 5-year terms and only 2 yet, at the time that took place, actually I opposed the 2 5-year terms, because to learn all that they have to learn, somebody's becoming part of what all takes place and getting it all, and before you know it, that 10-year time, if they
Yeah.
want 2 terms, it's up. And,
It
it's
takes
probably
a while.
pros and cons. Personally, I was against it, to limit somebody to 10 because of what you
Yeah.
learned in that time, and then somebody brand new comes in, you may get, whoever goes on there may be very well versed on
On
what goes on.
It takes a good 3 years to find out, most of the things we're talking about, with water, and of course, if you're not familiar with electric utilities, and it takes some grasping. But yeah, I think a general manager is really in favor of longer, that you could go for 3 or 4 terms. And he feels that 2 terms, he's just about have somebody trained and then they're going off to the commission. And I think that whoever I know who was behind the term limits, the 2 term limits, we had a commissioner that was on there for 30 years, I think.
long time, that's right.
Yeah, and
But I thought the whole commission was in favor of it, or it was by majority to,
I think we all voted for it.
yeah.
if I
But-
remember.
So, yeah,
Is that something that we want to take up, because it does look like there is an email, do you guys see the email here?
yeah. I guess we could put it as a referral because it's not an agenda item.
We can't take
And then,
action on it.
Like I said at the onset here, that I'm unfortunately or fortunately in favor of term limits on some things, and 10 years is a long time, which it takes, time to learn, but we all agree that sometimes fresh blood is good and brings a change, and so we can talk about it another time should it come up. So we have a motion and a second.
Who got that second, I'm sorry?
I did.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's right.
To approve the ordinance with a few minor changes, or was it probably as presented? And so all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Nope, motion carried. All right. Number 7, consider creating a 9th aldermanic district.
And I guess I'll start, this is one thing that I've been kind of looking at in terms of, especially since the referendum had occurred with 8th, and it's kind of interesting because, and not suggesting this mayor, but potentially any mayor in the future does have a little bit more power with the council with having that tie-breaking vote, especially on controversial issues that go straight down. The way that this is written, it says aldermanic district. The little bit of research that I did, it looks like we could create an at-large alderperson. And obviously I'm going to ask the city attorney for further opinion on that. But an at-large district would be encompass the whole city limits and would not cause us to redraw it. And with, again, a little bit of research that I did, the way that a city-wide alderperson would circulate nomination papers is that they would need 100 to 200 versus the city attorney and mayor and clerk would need 200 to 400. And the aldermanic districts would be 20 to 40. So it has an element where it's an elevated amount of signatures for that, but it isn't at the level of full-time city staff. And I apologize because I actually had looked at state statute, and I don't want to confuse anybody where I found those specific numbers that at large ability. But my question to the city attorney is, when the council was reduced to 8, it was done through referendum. To change that referendum, do we need the same level of democracy that occurred on there? Or does the council have the ability to make a change by ourselves rather than at the level of referendum?
Well, I don't recall, I wasn't here then. I'm not sure if at the time the aldermen and alderpersons deferred directly to a referendum and said, just you guys decide, or if I guess it starts out as a charter ordinance. So you could decide, we're gonna have a 9th aldermanic district, and then, because it's a charter ordinance, the elector can say, can bring it to a referendum then, enforce a referendum. Or else, I know on occasion, the aldermen have said, well, we're not gonna decide, we're just gonna kick it right to a referendum, a binding referendum. So I'm not sure how it started, but I would suggest that it starts with a charter ordinance. I don't like the fact of deferring to the referendum. I mean, it's kind of sometimes easier to, if there's enough signatures, then you go to the cost of the referendum, but that's totally your call. But it can be done with a charter ordinance, and all the charter ordinance says is to allow that possibility for referendum, sufficient petition is given, and I don't know how many percent of the people that voted in the last election. Right, but it can't just be a simple ordinance, it has to be a charter ordinance.
Which means from a simple majority to a supermajority vote.
2/3 vote, right, on a charter.
I guess I'll be probably speaking to Steve.
I'm in favor of creating the alderman at large position. And in doing so, I would like to see it where that alderman at large, since they would be on a 2-year term, I'd like to see them run in the odd number of years. Reason being is, in the even number of years, you have the mayor's race, so you have a higher voter turnout in those years anyways. But in the off years, the voter turnout is much lower, much lower. So I think by having the alderman at large in the odd number of years would really encourage voter participation and turnout.
That, and then this person wouldn't be specifically running with the mayor type of thing, like a junior mayor or whatever you call it, vice mayor. But the question then that would be, if we wanted to do it that way, with just having a 2-year term, we'd almost have to wait till 2021 for the election. Whereas, can we do kind of what we just did with the Public Works Commission and have the first election year be 2020 in the opposite term, but that term only lasting 1 year, and then it goes on to the odd cycle?
Right, you could do that, and as long as it's in the charter ordinance that you're,
Great.
yeah, because generally you have Alderman at 2-year terms, so yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, because you probably remember this all stemmed from the Russell study that recommended the reduction or through surveys to reduce the size of the council, and I believe the council wasn't interested in reducing the size, so a grassroots committee was formed, and I don't know why they came up with 8 at that time. It was.
If my memory's, and it's not right, I don't know totally, but it's 8 was a number that was never suggested.
Right.
8 was a number that was considerably less than what had been suggested.
Right, yeah.
I think it took the entire community, other than those that came up with 8, took the entire community by shock, but it did pass. Because in discussions that had been taking place, the numbers had been thrown around more in the 13 area.
Right.
And all of it, like I said, all of a sudden this 8 just,
Yeah,
as my memory is anyway, just
came up with 8.
Whoever came up with it, I don't know if I ever remember. If I did, I totally forgot, so.
He's passed away since, but.
But if I could say something more than that, you want a motion or anything?
No, we don't have a motion, no, we're still in discussion.
Okay. I'll voice, start with, I do not agree with an alderman at large. I somewhat look at it that we don't want a vice mayor, but that's somehow I look at it as being wanted or not, is because it's going to be a citywide position, basically. You're not going to have a alderman representing 2,500 or whatever number of people that us approximately represent. I agree with increasing the size. I think the number 9 is there, but I think to be odd, to keep it on that odd number, I think 11 would be one to be looked at too. But I'm in favor of increasing it, but I would, and I guess I'd have to ask Sue, if it was to be the redistricting being done, when could that take place?
That won't be done till probably later in 2021.
Yeah, it takes a while.
After the census results.
With the census and that, so yeah.
It'll be like a year and a half, probably maybe 2022, end of 2021, yeah.
Yeah.
Were you around about the last one?
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Oof.
I remember that.
That was hot.
It's kind of fun.
My duties as clerk, that was probably my least favorite.
They changed all
ever.
the legislative districts are
Yeah.
congressional, so they were coming in and grabbing parts of the city and
bits
so
and
dividing
pieces.
up our aldermanic
Oh, yeah.
districts, and then we had to figure out, okay, well, because you didn't want to have
Right, you gotta
70
balance
different
it.
ballots for each.
Right, that was the worst thing I ever did as clerk, but I agree with Tom, but I like the idea of an odd number, because I still believe that it's the council that governs and oversees everything, and ultimately the council should make these votes and decisions, and it shouldn't rest on the mayor to break a tie. Even though I look at the mayor as a quasi-political position, I don't like that position legislating as much. I do like the at-large. I think Pittsville, they went to all at-large because they have problems, as we see, we have very little competition in aldermanic wards for positions. And so if we create a 9th, we're reducing these districts down even more. So my concern would be having vacant seats where the at-large person, we've all seen maybe 2 people run for a position, an aldermanic district, that I think both people would be really great. Well, this would give an opportunity for another potential strong leader that might be in Steve's district to also run and hold a seat on the council and still participate, and we end up with that odd number. My only concern is as we reduce the size of these districts, and it's not much, but it's going to be reduced to accommodate a ninth, is that district going to even produce a person interested in running for the seat? And that would be my concern.
I'd like to point out that Marshfield does have aldermen from the district, and I believe they have 2 at-large aldermen, and that seems to be working out pretty good.
I think they have 9, and Stevens Point has 11 alderpersons. So that odd number is kind of where we want to go. So, but I was unaware that they had at-large, so that's good to know.
Well, I guess the other question is, do we feel as a council that adding, let's say, 3 more, is that really going to help us as a council, or are we going to become cumbersome, or have we streamlined the process and gotten used to the way we do business that we're okay with a smaller number? I'm just trying to figure out if 3 more, is there any benefit to it? Otherwise, it's 3 more people that are going to participate, but go ahead.
In my opinion, I think 9 is a good place to start, and I think for our standing committees, Public Works, Property Finance, and Public Works, it would be good, because now you're not going to have an alderman that has to pull double duty on a committee. I agree with the fact that it is going to be that extra opinion that's on there. I do favor with starting it in 2020 for 1 year and then doing it in 2021. But when we talked on redistricting, what my thought is like if we find out that we're at 9 and we feel we need more, then with redistricting coming up after the 2020 census, I think if we want to look at creating more districts after the census would be done, I think that would be like the best time to look at further adding on to the council at that time. But I think looking at starting with a 9th one and doing it at large and see how it goes. You know, if you put the call out citywide for April of 2020, you're going to see what type of interest you're going to generate anyways, because here we're sitting in June. If anyone is even interested in running, they're not going to be able to pull papers till December 1st. So you literally have 6 months to generate interest for an at-large alderman, and then you're not talking about electing them until 4 months afterwards. So I think it'd be a really good litmus test to see how we're going to go with this.
Yeah, and I agree that, because I think, even with our reduction, if we're looking at increasing, we've reduced our population so much from the time when we had 19 aldermen in this community. Our population, we're not growing leaps and bounds here. So
the population,
right, so
not to that drastic
right.
extent.
So we've been reducing our population, and then we want to try to carve out more people and get them interested in running for council. And that's my concern with going to the district end of it. And I think that's what happened in Pittsville. They were having troubles with open seats, so they went at large, and they're filling their seats now. And I always thought that I was always been in favor of an odd number. Probably there might be people that should argue that we could go down, but I think we need to go up 1 versus going down 1. And that I like the idea of at large, because I think you can get multiple people interested in one district to run for a seat.
Sue, if you got your pen ready, I think I'll make a motion. It'll be a mouthful here, but I'll try to go for it.
Go ahead, Doug.
Okay, maybe I should wait till after the motion, but I've looked at this actually off and on, or thought about it. A lot of study in it, not necessarily a lot of study in it. I've thought about it a lot. And I do watch the other communities on TV, probably more than I watch our own, because I don't like to watch myself on there. I might find out that I was wrong on things, and I thought I was right. I don't know. But, anyway, so I watch other communities, and Marshfield and Wausau, Endpoint. So I did go on the computer today, because I had written it down for Wausau by watching them on their where they're just scrolling around what's all in the community, you know, have the council like ours does in pictures and different numbers and everything. But I finally did go on the computer actually to see what these do, because I see on those where they got 5. This is where I'm going to get to the numbers, not necessarily 11 being that magic number or 9 not being in there. Is that they have 5 people per standing committee with, I think, committees, capital improvements and street maintenance. And I think some of the, I wonder in my own mind if along with this change, that before we go to the whatever number we want to, that we take a look at what the duties of the committees are. And that may surface why, because not necessarily that 3 on a committee doesn't work, but there's not, I don't think you have the conversation about issues that you have versus if you had 5 or even 4. And then that's where the council of 8, I think, being too small, is that actually there's very little discussion that takes place at the council level. You know, there's no.
We don't have the midnight meetings anymore.
So, you know, I think that it may be interesting to look at changing what the committees do. Like this in Wausau with this capital improvement and street maintenance committee, somewhat as a recommend the purchase, sale, and leasing of real estate by the city, and recommend the usage, and it goes on and on and on. So where finance and property has, and property, so, you know, is there a different way that instead of just changing the number, that we change what our committee structure is and what the committees actually do? Such as we're looking at, with the water and light, to actually having a voting member from the council on there. But I think with the more people you have, more dialogue, more that, you know, there may be more questions about what to do. I think the Public Works has, you know, that I'm on, that I think with our committee that, you know, there were questions asked, so I'm not saying that questions aren't asked and debate doesn't take place, but I just think with more. And so that, you know, looking at what these other councils have, is that there are some that, in the Wausau case, does have 5 on a committee. They, you know, there are, you know, without going through, I copied all of these out there stuff, and it's quite a, you know, it may not be something that we'd want anything to do with at all, but I think it may be interesting to look at, is there some way to change what our committee structure actually is that would also make the function of the council itself better.
Yeah, I think about that too.
And that's where I think we get the more in the number, but to get that odd number, I totally support the going to the odd number.
But are we walking down that path that led us to 8 with, because look, I remember the council had discussion on their own numbers in the community and this group, and obviously I think through the referendum that forced the change. Is the concern that there might be a rise up that 11 is too much, because they went to 8 with, because they weren't satisfied with the council's discussion on their numbers at the time, and they forced it to 8 because they wanted a small. And my concern is, are we going the wrong way? That might rise up the group saying, well, wait a minute, we wanted a smaller group, and you know, and we're going the other direction.
Period.
Well, and I agree with that. You know, I mean, it's a case, Mr. Aylwin, where I think, and you've got the most experience, obviously, and you've got experience when the council is 19, and, you know, the chaos that may have occurred, or the suggested chaos and different things. And so then the question is our committee structure broken the way it is? Or does it seem like we function pretty good? Having longer meetings doesn't necessarily mean that
We're more productive.
that we're more productive. I don't disagree that the lack of discussion may be concerning as well, but is it to the point where it's problematic that we need to change? And I think that, looking at the original reason for suggesting a ninth alderperson was that, and again, not necessarily the current mayor, but any future mayors have a little bit more power in terms of that tie-breaking vote. And then one thing that Mr. Colt brought up that I never thought about is the standing committees currently. They're, because of 8, and we got 3 standing committees with 3 members, someone does double duty. And that would kind of eliminate that or make it more fair across the board. So those are the problems that I wanted to try and remedy with this, without opening up Pandora's box. So, but I do. I mean, you're in terms of reorganizational structures and reevaluating the programs that we have. I don't think it's a bad idea to have discussion on could we change and make it better. But the question is it broken right now? And I don't know if I could say yes as far as committee structures. But
And this committee being an example of that, where this did not exist a year ago.
Right.
And now we have this committee here to talk and discuss on these issues, which is good.
Which I think is good. And there was, years ago, there was a legislative
Yep.
committee. And I'm glad it did come back into being, and we'll see where it goes, what it evolves into. 'Cause
Mr. Goth, you add some verbiage?
Yes. I would like to make a motion to create an alderman at large for the city of Wisconsin Rapids, with the first alderman at large election being held in April of 2020. For that person to serve a term of 1 year, and then subsequently the alderman at large election will be every odd numbered year.
for a 2-year term.
For a 2-year term.
I'll second that.
I'll just make sure she's caught up.
Okay, I got it.
Good. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just one question on this, and maybe Sue can clarify with creating this now. This alderman at large, this person's gonna run in the odd numbered years. So let's say either Thad or I in our districts, we have competition, and we know we have competition, so I go pull my papers for District 5 again. Are you also allowed at that same time, if you want to try to retain your seat, to pull the alderman at large paperwork as well too, and
I
get the extra seat?
think you can, and then you just have to decline one.
That would be
pretty sure.
a really great clarification.
What if you win
both? Yeah, what if you win both? Or that could be a
Well, you
case.
would get 2
votes.
votes. It's the same as if you're running
For mayor and alderman.
Alderman, then you
Yeah.
you have to vacate one of the offices because you can't be both. I'll find that out for sure.
Or if we wanted to, we could not allow that at the local level. But we could still allow a sitting alderperson to run for it without running for their current seat.
So do we want to put that in the motion that you run for one or the other?
I wouldn't want to prohibit it if someone that
Seems odd to run for both.
Well, yeah, hypothetically, if someone in your district was interested in running and you were still interested in running, you could run for the at-large district and that person could be there. But I would like to prohibit running for both at the same time.
But what if you're an even numbered district and you're 1 year into your term and you run for an at-large?
Correct, because you're not on.
What's the difference?
Well, so then you would only allow certain alderpersons to run and the other ones can't.
Clint, yeah.
That's kind of my
Yeah.
objection to it too.
And that's been Tom's objection over the year with mayor.
Right.
Because half the council can run for mayor and still hold their council seat if they want, but the other half have to run both. I think I remember hearing you saying that years ago, a discussion about that.
So this is a way that an odd alderperson could actually have an run for our alderperson, have a sitting alderperson seat, and then run for mayor.
To me, and that at-large alderman, it doesn't have anything special over, they just have to get more signatures. And it's nice because they're not bound by a geographic district. But I think those are some good questions that,
Okay, so do we want to, well, do you want the answers to the questions before you determine what this ordinance is going to say?
no.
No,
I don't.
no, I mean.
Or at council.
Bring it back, or by council I can, and then
Yeah,
I guess at that point you can decide
by
based on that
council.
information how
How to frame,
what
frame
limits you
the,
can place on it and who could run and.
for
okay.
me, I hate to limit and prohibit anybody from running for any office. You know, no matter if it's the same year, opposite year. You know, if you want to create that mess and deal with the backlash for it potentially, that's kind of up to the person running for it maybe.
I'll offer an argument for the flip side of it. What I would hate to do is discourage someone from running for office if an incumbent is pulling out both sets of papers even before anybody announces for that. Because incumbents win 91% of the time.
But you're not going to be incumbent in both offices.
But no, because I could be an incumbent in this office, but then I could run for both of them. You know, so that's where I would rather have it prohibitory, even though it is causing an unfairness on the council members. I don't think that supersedes the fairness to the residents themselves. And by having someone that could do a grab on both of them, and like day one, get 20 signatures and 100 signatures and have kind of a lock, and then that may prohibit other people from running for it. So that's where
But as an elector, I'd be disappointed seeing them in both the spots. I mean, I'll vote for either of them then. You know, I just, for me, I guess when I go to vote, you know, I'd be like, wait a minute, what's the game here, you know? Where I think it's kind of shady in my opinion, but Joey seemed to be pretty active over there.
I mean, I'm not gonna judge this out any longer.
It's a
but
nice shirt.
I think whether it's an odd year, whether it's an even year, the potential, maybe not with current council, maybe down the road or whatever, I could see 4 people every year running for both spots. You know, I mean, I don't know.
Right,
But
that's true.
maybe not. So, but what you said, I don't need to repeat it.
How come you're always repeating everything I
I don't know, because you beat me to the
For the odd,
punch.
if it is an odd number year,
You steal the
is there an issue
thunder.
with- so then that's the odd numbered years are the only years that you're never gonna have a citywide election, because all the other officers are gonna be 20, or aldermen. Does that make a difference with ballots and all of that if?
No, because those are easy because they're not divided by district. So it's
Okay.
just a name
So
on,
then, right,
it's
so
just
those-
a spot on every ballot
Those odd
then.
numbered years when all the other officers are.
Oh, wait a
That
minute.
would be.
No,
Well, you usually don't have a time when just half the city's voting because there's usually, I've never seen where there's something else not on the ballot.
You have
Right, like a
state.
Supreme Court or
whatever,
some school
yeah.
board, but it doesn't mean it couldn't happen.
About our local, yeah, right.
But you know, I've never seen it happen where you only had like
Incumbents on a ballot.
just incumbents and having an aldermanic district on a ballot and no other race.
there wasn't much
That
this year.
just happened.
Just this
Really?
spring, there wasn't much
Yeah.
on there, other than
I
Supreme
think-
Court.
But I think it's weird.
There was very little, I think.
Well,
on
the
there.
Supreme Court would be citywide, so you'd be okay.
No, but I mean, to get people to
Yeah,
vote,
but
I'm saying,
But I just haven't seen, because if that would create a situation, if you have the odd alderman districts up and there's nothing else on the ballot, only half the city would vote.
Right.
Versus, but if you had this at-large, then everybody, you might have a ballot with just one name on it because there's nobody else running.
But that would be, would that?
The cost, there's a cost to it, but
you're gonna,
you're not gonna have a large turnout, I don't think, in those
Yeah,
areas.
Yeah, the odd
There's-
numbered year is gonna be, because
You'll always
my
have a
office,
citywide.
clerk, judge, mayor, those
Yeah.
are all even, not necessarily on the
Right.
same even year, but.
Right.
So, but yeah, there's always gonna be something else, hopefully, but
Well,
I
Right.
guess it's up to.
That's
county
a good
board,
point.
county board is always up every 2 years, so every odd year they're not gonna be on there, but school board might have something.
But a lot of times it's
Yeah.
a state office on there, a
State.
judge or the school
Supreme
superintendent
Court.
of public instruction, and some of them. This will be the year it happens, though.
Well, yeah, I guess it may
It'll have to be a
encourage.
citywide ballot though, right?
Yeah.
You're right, it'd be a citywide ballot at that point.
So,
Mhm. So you might have nothing in
So
your
all
ballot,
the- if-
and I might have an
if
alderman and
there's
a
nine,
city.
if it's 9, that there's gonna be 9, well, it'll be 8, as this is going, 8, there'll be 8 districts with a 9th.
At large. Mhm.
Four districts that aren't elected an alderman that year are gonna have a name on of somebody running
For at large,
citywide.
correct. Which I think would be interesting, because you can pull people from all over the city into that position, which I don't think is a bad
And it
thing.
is number 9, so that's a odd number, so
Yeah.
odd number of years.
Can't the Beatles have a song?
Yep, yep.
All right, we'll get this moving. So we have a motion and a second to create an ordinance, a charter, or amend the charter ordinance to create the 9th aldermanic district, or 9th at-large aldermanic district, with the caveat of the first term in 2020 being 1 year, and then subsequent years after that, it'd be held on the odd year for a 2-year term. Correct?
And then with clarification at
Also
council,
with
whether it's
multiples,
state statute allows to run for both offices.
or that would hinder or keep from allowing it
And
also.
if you can run, then whether it's appropriate for us to restrict that, because that
If
might
we
be an
could,
issue.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And
if we
so-
could
right,
restrict it.
Right.
So we have a motion and a second to approve that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay. All right, number 8. Consider creating an ordinance for alcohol license restrictions for online retail alcohol ordering and pickup. This is you, Pat? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, and I
The Walmart.
just, I looked at Madison's and, right, at the time of the last, I think Walmart is the only one that has requested so far.
Correct.
And we made theirs conditional upon following their, basically their pickup procedure guide. But a few of the things, and I think I gave you an article from Claire Silverman from the league also.
Yes.
Yep.
If I can just quickly go through Madison, just point out a couple things that are different than probably what Walmart is doing. That you have to verify that the person placing the order is the same person picking up the order, because I don't think that's necessarily clear in Walmart's. You could have to allow it to be denied without affecting the remaining of the purchase, that's B5. And then regarding just basically capturing who that person is, so this would be, you have to retain an image of the vehicle, and you have to retain all of this information, specifically the ID card, date of birth, license plate. And this really severely limits, well, it doesn't severely, but limits the hours to 8 to 8, which is reasonable, but then you have to have a 4-hour waiting period between the time the order is made and the pickup time, which is, I understand that people can't just, especially if people feel have been drinking and want to come and get more alcohol, that it can't be just a spur of the moment, come and cash and carry kind of thing.
Right.
Orders placed after 2 p.m. cannot be picked up till the following day, that's another restriction. The rest of them are pretty much no events other than click and collect orders will be allowed. Obviously, we can't have tastings or things out there, so
Right.
that's another one. So those are, I guess, the timing, the limiting of the time, and then the verification of the vehicle and purchaser are basically the two things that are in here that aren't in the Walmart rules. And I thought, I looked around at some, and I thought the Madison was a pretty decent one, at least in terms of the content. So whether you agree with the hours and the waiting period or not, I guess that's something to be decided, but if these ordinances are placed in effect, they would affect Walmart and
That
any
was gonna be like-
future, right, because we're allowed to regulate these types of things, so they would be kind of carried in under this ordinance also, and so it'd be good to get this in place before others ask or so that they at least understand what.
I'd be curious to know what Walmart would think of this, because I would think, obviously, this is gonna apply to them with the
Yeah.
4-hour wait. You know, I'm kind of curious to see if
Right.
that 4-hour wait is a concern for them.
Others didn't have that, I mean,
Right.
other cities didn't have that, that was kind of probably a maximum amount, and then the orders after 2 can't be picked up. So those are kind of the 2 main things that stick out, I think, from other municipalities.
Did you?
No, go ahead.
Okay, we're going around the horn here.
All right. Para F and para G, the 4-hour waiting period and the orders placed after 2 PM. I understand the thought process behind it, but I mean, I don't really understand. I don't know if it's practical, because here's the thing, you're on the computer, you type in, I want a case of Miller 64, and you're gonna go to Walmart, and you're gonna go pick it up, and what you get to Walmart, it says, sorry sir, you have to wait 4 hours, or nope, you ordered after 2 PM, no, you have to wait till the next day. Well, Walmart's gonna lose the sale, because I'm just gonna be like, well, I can't get my Miller 64, so I'm just gonna drive down to Kelly's Liquor or the nearest gas station and pick it up there. And I really think that would be unfortunate for a business to lose a sale when I could clearly just go somewhere else and buy it in a non-drive-through fashion.
Well, I'll agree with that. Absolutely, I'll agree with that. But it's a case where this whole allowing them to have online sales is above and beyond any of the local businesses that we have. You know, so if someone wanted to walk in the store, go down to the liquor aisle, grab the Miller 64 case, and then purchase it, there's nothing prohibiting that at all. You know, so it's specifically for, and not that I'm saying that this is what we're gonna vote on and agree on and whatever. I'm not necessarily sticking up for what this is, but in my opinion, and again, I've always been accused of being anti-business, I don't think that this is anti-business because it's unifying a standard across what all businesses will have to comply with for specific online sales. You know, so again, if you wanted to order online, Walmart may have to adjust their online ordering, saying, hey, by the way, when you click this box, you're gonna have to wait 4 hours and have a time clicker on there or something like that. I don't know. With that being said, again, what I don't want to do is create absolute limitations for every business and everything else, and cause too much red tape for businesses to participate and sell products. The one thing that I had gotten, or that I inferred, because there was a gentleman representative from Walmart that I had asked the question, I said, is this a corporate program? And the gentleman affirmed that it is a corporate program. So it isn't a local store, so then even, I didn't ask the follow-up question, and maybe I should have, is how does the local store feel about it? But I would imagine that there would be an affirmative of how the corporate rollout is with that. But yeah, I just, as far as any type of arbitrary wait time, I guess I'm not concerned, because if someone goes to the local grocery store or the local gas station or whatever else, that's business. That's not my problem. That's not something that I am caring about, because I think 1 or 2 cases of beer is not going to affect the global sales of Walmart. So.
Tom?
Yeah, okay, I think, and since we acted on the Walmart thing last month, it has gone around and around in my mind that I think we jumped on it when we shouldn't have jumped on it. We should have waited till we had something like this, so I think all questions could have been asked and answered. And I also want, we're looking at the Walmart, obviously, any other grocery stores or something like that. What about liquor stores? Are liquor stores gonna be able to put in and have a drive-up window? And be online? I did call, and I'm gonna call back and talk to a gentleman at one of our local liquor stores tomorrow morning, hopefully, about this. What their feelings are on it.
But technically, you could have a drive up right now. You can go up to,
Online.
but
They'd be able to
They have
order
the same
online.
license as,
yeah, they would have the
like
same
Walmart
license,
would,
so
So that would allow them to.
they
do this.
would allow them to be able to do that.
Mhm. But they'd
Okay.
have to be, the face-to-face, I mean, basically all the rules. and
Same rules.
They'd have to follow whatever the rules
Right.
are that we've done with Walmart, and they're being looked at, or could be changed in what this proposed ordinance, or what the Madison ordinance is, with a couple restrictions on it, okay? Because that was a question I had is, were liquor stores gonna be able to do this also if they wanted to? Not that I know they would, because the liquor store, basically, you drive up just about to the door and walk in, you know?
Mhm.
But, and I guess grocery stores are much different depending which door you go in. You can go right into the liquor store
But I
or
think-
in some, so.
And I think that machine of creating that online store is going to be reserved for, I would think, a bigger, I don't think it's an easy task to create an online store and
Right, to
do all
do
the,
all the, right.
all the, yeah, but yeah, they'd be more than eligible. But I do agree with Steve that, if, I'm not a wine drinker, but if I'm at lunch and I've got a moment, I put an order in and, or wherever, and I'm having a dinner party, I want to get all these things, well, now I gotta wait 4 hours to go pick it up. If I order a bottle of wine and spaghetti stuff, whatever. And I gotta wait 4 hours now to go get it. And I'm in agreement with Steve that I'm not in favor of the 4-hour waiting, the 2 PM thing. Just because those type of situations. And I've seen other Walmarts around the area that do have this already, and they're pretty steady. The pickups are pretty steady for them. But it's usually you see them going out and they have bags of groceries. Where people pull in and they get their week's groceries that way. They're not. I have a hard time thinking and believing that a bulk of their sales are drive-up liquor store type thing. Where they're actually, people are going online, doing their shopping, and then just driving there, picking it all up and leaving. Like you said, you could drive up the front door of a liquor store, and I'm sure they come out and help you get it if you needed it. But I agree with Steve on the time limits. I'm not in favor of those.
Well, and it could be an element where we don't know why the city of Madison put those in. It could be in a protectionary type of operation, protecting sole practitioners or local grocery stores, I mean, it could be that we hear unintended consequences when we take actions on some things, and it could be just as arbitrary as not having them in there at all,
I think
I don't know.
that the common theme was you haven't seen it in ordinances. There's like, the
Well,
Madison thing is more unique
I mean,
for those times.
right, right. I mean, there are not a whole lot that have
Well, I was
ordinances
gonna-
actually
probably,
yet.
yeah.
Right,
That's a good
so,
point. We're on groundbreaking here.
I just wanted to re-echo your sentiments about why, I agree with what you said about the time period. See, so the whole thing of the online shopping is, we've become a impromptu, spur-of-the-moment society, and instant and on demand. You type something into the computer and Amazon shows up and delivers it within 24 to 48 hours, And I'm looking at this as somebody sitting at work, they're thinking about everything they're gonna need for dinner, they go online, they put everything in, they order it, they expect to go to the grocery store and pick it up. I mean, obviously Walmart knows that we have established alcohol sale hours within the city of Wisconsin Rapids, that they cannot sell before a certain time or sell after a certain time, which when they were here last month, they said that they were gonna, well, they obviously have no choice, but I agree with.
How convenient is that to be able to sit in the evening and put in your grocery order? Because all of us, our lives are we seem to be time is such an important thing that because we're all so busy, where you can go in there, hammer out your grocery order and pick it up the next day, and it costs you literally hardly no time, in your
Yeah.
day, which is a huge convenience.
And I mean, I get it. I don't know if anyone wants to say it, but I think maybe there's a stigma or a worry about some person going through a drive-through window, an employee saying, "Here you go, dude, here's your six-pack, enjoy," and then that person getting in their car, popping a beer, and driving off down the road. When realistically, in all practicality, when you go to the gas station, you fill up your tank, you can go to the store, you can grab the same six-pack, you can throw it in the seat next to you, you can drink. The potential for negative behavior in either case is there, and there's already laws on the books to correct that negative behavior if you choose to engage that. Just like you buy your beer at the gas station, you choose to drink and drive, the gas station's not responsible for what you do after you buy that beer and drive out of there, unless you're blatantly drunk and they serve it to you, which they should have refused service, because there's that avenue. I think in the same case, once you purchase that beer and the drive-through liquor retailer has done everything that they're supposed to do to verify that you're of age, and they've gotten a copy of your photo ID, they got a copy of your vehicle image and all this other stuff, they've done their due diligence. After you take possession of that alcohol, what you do with it after you leave that premises is on you. So if you take it and you choose to make a bad decision, that's ultimately on you.
Well, and I'll agree with you so hardly on this with that element, and that's the one thing that I'm not concerned about. By no means do I think that Walmart, I think that they're going to go above and beyond, with the technology that they have and everything. So the suggestion of, is someone going to utilize this for negative reasons, or are there going to be negative outcomes from it? As far as alcohol consumption, that's the furthest from my concern. But I do have a fear, and this goes above and beyond local government, I guess, but you alluded to it, Steve, it's when you mentioned Amazon. I bought a couple, in my grad school class, I got to have a couple books, and there are no bookstores for textbooks, so I had to order them on Amazon. I ordered them on Friday night at 9:30 at night, and they were delivered on Sunday. That 2 days, day and a half. I mean, it was just, but that's why a lot of the department stores are going out of business. Obviously, Shopko's going out, but that's a different story in terms of debt and everything else. But I do have a concern that in the next 5 to 10 years, if we get so accustomed to ordering our groceries online, that's the only place in town that's going to have them, and that's and that's a scary part. And I think that could be a reason why the city of Madison put it. Like, it could be any arbitrary reason. It could be influence. A city council member in Madison might be a grocery store owner. I don't know. But it isn't the negative effects of having someone be able to do that, because like you said, you can just go into a gas station. Actually more convenient to just walk into a gas station, a liquor store, because it's right there, rather than going through the hassle of buying it online. But once we go down that slippery slope of now ordering everything online, having everything ordered with one push button deal, what are the unintended consequences for our community?
I agree, but ultimately it still comes down to the choice of the community. If they choose to utilize that service and it affects other businesses, that's on the community then.
Yeah, so how about this?
So yeah,
I'm not going to be against taking out F and G, because ultimately we can always add that in later, and it would supersede the city attorney. Would it supersede if we created stronger ordinance language in the future?
Right.
Any business would have to adhere to those.
Right.
There's no grandfather.
Yeah, no grandfathering, so I have no problem removing F and G. But I think we do need to have a policy.
I agree. Yeah.
I would make a motion. I would make a motion to ask the city to ask the city attorney to draft a ordinance for the city of Wisconsin Rapids mimicking or mirroring the language in the Madison ordinance with the exceptions of para F and para G for liquor pickup sales or drive-through liquor sales.
I would second that. Do I have a motion and a second to mirror this ordinance after Madison's? Any other discussion? My only question is, and I don't remember Walmart, but is this changing anything that Walmart will have to do? I don't remember Walmart.
I think specifically retaining and recording like
The alcohol
like,
purchases?
yeah, I don't think that that was all, that was specifically in there. Take a look.
I want to say that the chief asked if there's going to be some type of mechanical device or that reads driver's licenses.
It seemed for me, I could just see them with a scanner or something.
Yeah, they're
Just
gonna,
swipe it.
and that's where I'm not worried about it. You know, I don't think that there's gonna be any.
I just didn't know if that now they're gonna have to do something that they weren't aware of, which I'm sure they'll do, but we just have to make sure we communicate with them.
Well, as Thad alluded to, if this is a corporate roll policy, if you think of this country coast to coast and how many Walmarts are, how many
Yeah.
different cities there are, I'm sure corporate-wise, Walmart has to deal with literally thousands of different
Yeah,
municipalities.
people
and-
probably specifically don't.
How many municipalities are in the state of Wisconsin? Like 1,462 or something, so.
Right, I think right now, you just said they're asking for an ID and they're entering the date of birth. That's really the only identifying information from the customer. And so this would basically say you need license plate and the name.
I'm still good with that.
And they could even enter that into the website too, and then the person
You can
would
verify it.
Yeah. But what I noticed at Cops, or I can say it now, in the self-checkout, they take your driver's license and scan it, you know, to make sure that it's actually a legitimate driver's license. They don't even punch in numbers or whatever, they just scan the back barcode. So I imagine Walmart would have something like that, an RF or RQ scanner or whatever, QR code scanner.
So we have a motion and a second to approve this ordinance modeling after Madison with the exception of F and G, taking out the time periods. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition, say nay. Okay, motion carries. Oh, last one. Discussion regarding the prohibition of the feeding of birds in city parks. I'm not sure specifically where this came from, but I know Joe Terry had an interest in it and spoke in favor of it for health reasons, for spread of E. coli, and also to discourage year-round geese and those migratory birds that end up not migrating because they do have a sufficient food source in the community. I know in the past, this was quite a heated discussion, if I remember right, previously, and there was quite a bit of discussion around this item, and it didn't pass. That's all I know about this item. Thoughts? Anyone have any thoughts? Heather?
I do.
You enjoy it?
I mean, when I first heard this, and I didn't make it to the meetings, but honestly, I mean, this has been around forever, and this, Rapids doesn't have a whole lot for families to do. This is something free that families have partaken in forever, and to take that away just seems wrong. I don't know. I mean, maybe we could reroute it so it's at a place where there, aren't so many businesses around because of their complaints about the goose feces and, stuff like that, but to take that away, I just think that's wrong. But
I myself, I don't feel very strong about this item either.
I don't know who, it wasn't my referral for this. But I do remember, and it was before I got into the council, there was at Hotel Mead, there was a presentation by the representative from Supermass for the design
Oh,
of this. And he had mentioned that the geese, when, I don't remember how it was, when upgrades were going to be done more south in the park, where the riprap and the different hand railing, the geese are going to migrate that way from the current location that they are, right tight against the buildings, right across from the movie theater. But then the next day, I drove down by the river, and there was someone with a 55-pound bag of seed and bread, carrying it out to feed the birds, which I don't care. It's a case where people enjoy it, and you know, unless I'm presented with some definitive information that would cause me to change my opinion, I'm gonna leave it at the status quo.
I know families in the community have been getting rid of moldy bread by doing this for a long time. But I do remember some of the discussion around it, and every year the city goes through goose control measures, and I know that was been discussed at Public Works, where they oil the eggs and have the goose round up and just send so many of them off. And a lot of it is because when families go down to the river for the 4th of July, you have that area adjacent to where the Elks used to be that's covered in goose feces, and you have people sitting in there in city crews trying to keep up on washing the benches and keeping the goose poo down and that nature, and it doesn't have a lot of success. I'm not in favor of discontinuing something that has gone on for generations in this town, but I do echo Heather's sentiments that maybe something we should explore is having designated spots along the river
I kinda like that.
that would be suitable for feeding the geese. So when somebody has 55 gallons of popcorn or moldy bread that they want to dump off, go feed the geese in this spot, but in an area where it's not downtown where people are going to gather for festivities or events of that nature. I think that would probably be the perfect compromise, or in a win-win, to still have the enjoyment of feeding the birds but also having, you know, since we're dumping money in down by the riverbank, by having a good presentable riverbank. But also, you know, this says city parks, you know, so now you have parks that aren't necessarily adjacent to the river, like Sandlot Park or Robinson Park.
You're talking feeding pigeons and wherever else too, you know.
Yeah,
Seagulls.
And I don't know.
Yeah, you're taking it.
Yeah, it seems to be very.
So I think if we go any further, I think the best thing is to just find designated spots where it would be okay to feed the animals.
Well, can we take it to the next step from what that representative for Supermass? Can we make an area of a park that would attract the geese, like geese slides or wheel things that they would enjoy? Is that a possibility?
Well, I think the problem is obviously geese migrate back to the same nesting areas, so these geese are coming back and sticking around in nesting areas and also by water. So these designated areas need to be by water, and I'm just thinking about a riverfront. It's utilized with paths everywhere, so no matter what, you're gonna have people dealing with a concentrated group of geese somewhere. And I don't know. I think having them spread out wherever is better. And
A nice area is on the backside of NEPCO there. I mean, there's a lot of geese.
you'll never get the geese to shift from the river to go down to NEPCO.
And that's outside the city too, so
That's true.
your designated area would need to be somewhere along the river between, anywhere along the river from the Elks, the old Elks, we need to come up with a better name, the old Elks Club south, past the Masonic Temple, because there's geese all along through there all the time, and I don't know if you're gonna get them to coordinate and hang out together as a group in a feeding area.
Well, that harvesting of geese, is that something that was, I want to say that I heard folklore about that, it was brought to like food banks or?
Yeah,
Yeah, they round them up.
they round them up and
They
then
go to-
donate them.
They take them to Wall Pond and then,
They donate them to the food banks.
Does that happen annually then? Do we?
I don't think so,
I
not
don't
even.
think they've done
Done it
that.
for quite a while, yeah. But they do oil eggs and and that's the other issue is the cost of oiling eggs and doing that, but I think that's part of doing business, living in a river community.
and it's really, I think, only the
It's like,
geese that people seem to have a problem with.
well, because ducks do their business in the water where geese don't.
There was a goose duck hybrid that I seen the other day. Do they cross pollinate at all?
I don't know. So I guess what the committee's wish is to how to deal with this. Do we want to wait until there's a swell?
Isn't there a ban on
Feeding?
feeding, isn't there some?
No.
Or none whatsoever?
I want to say that I seen a sign in Demet Park that says, please don't feed the geese.
Well,
I think it's please don't feed the geese.
No.
Please.
Yeah, there's a deer feeding, I don't think
Yeah.
there's any.
Because then there'd have to
Yeah.
be something under like city ordinance.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a deer feeding ban that's been around for quite a while, but yeah, I think it's just a request and not an ordinance.
A suggestion.
I suggest a plea, but yeah, I think it, unless we have some major outbreak, for myself, I'm not in favor of changing anything unless there seems to be a warrant of a serious problem or, I don't know, that's my opinion. I don't know, whatever you guys want to decide.
I'm not, I mean, I don't have a problem entertaining it at a later date if there is concern. And again, it's a case where in a real strict purview of local government as far as us being legislators, sometimes it's almost the status quo is important, and it's almost more important unless someone can provide evidence to compel you to change the status quo. So I mean, without taking any action, that doesn't mean that we're
Against it.
inaction
Right.
about it, is that we're waiting till action may need to take place.
So just doing no action at this time?
Yeah. Wait for further information to be
To change
reported. Yeah.
status quo?
I don't know, with you being the chairman of Public Works, I don't know if that's something maybe Public Works would want to consider to look at designated feeding spots.
Yeah, I could absolutely put that on the next agenda, absolutely.
But it's, as far as legislative though too, another thought that comes to mind is, when we discussed the bully ordinance tonight, we were trying to figure out how severe of a consequence we want to set for bullying. Well, this is feeding the birds, so
Mhm.
how severe of a penalty would you set for that?
Probably put it probably in the deer feeding ban and whatever that is, but, yeah, so how about, I guess we leave this, you guys all in favor of no, we don't need a motion, just no action at this time.
Right.
And then, I think that takes care of all of our items on legislative committee, so the next item set next meeting day, and I think we just stay in limbo until we have items that need to be taken up. I know there's an item from Water and Light regarding term limits, but unless the committee feels this is a pressing item that we need to address, I'm in favor of just leaving it out there until it becomes something that we want to address.
Correct, I'd like to talk about it, I don't want to suppress it, but
Right.
it's something that doesn't need
Immediate action,
immediate
no.
need, and,
No, you finish.
well, yeah, so I mean, as far as, one thing that I would actually ask or throw out on the table is that our next meeting date, I don't necessarily think that we need to schedule in per se, but what should be a good agenda, 5 items that need consideration.
Yeah, we need, once we get
7.
some items, we need to probably take them up somewhere around the 5-ish items, or if there's pressing items that we need to take up. But yeah, I think getting an agenda this big is, there's a lot on there, so.
Although I think we did a good job of vetting all these, and I think that being on a non-committee night, it was in a relaxed tone, and there was no emphasis on getting done right away.
Right.
You know, we were able to vet this.
Mhm.
But yeah, on a regular basis, I don't think.
So what's the plan to come to this committee? Is it all ordinances, all?
Well,
or-
it was originally for those ordinances which, you know, don't
Oh,
have a
have a
specific
committee.
committee. But
Okay.
I think, I mean, I guess, what does that mean? I mean, arguably, you could say, well, some are, that this could be finance because it's like a property issue, or it's an ordinance, so it's a, you know, we'll have a fine structure in that, but I don't know, maybe that needs to be better defined. I mean, do you want to, like, any ordinance should come to you versus, I mean, obviously, if there's an annexation or something, those have to go to certain committees, but, I mean, we just left it as anything that really didn't have a specific
That's probably,
committee.
I like that, just because I
Yeah.
think, because we have regular committees that meet regularly, and I hate
Yeah.
to see, you know, any hindrance of getting those things taken
Right,
care of
right,
timely.
right, exactly,
You know, I'd
yeah.
like to see it all get
Mhm.
disposed of quickly, unless there's items out here that aren't immediate and pressing, then we can
Mhm.
take these up and discuss them.
Or, go ahead.
When we were talking about our alderman at large, Tom had mentioned about having